U.S. President Donald Trump called Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Thursday and said he was keen to overcome any obstacles in the way of their country's cooperation. This comes just days after it emerged that the U.S. would be withholding some financial aid to Egypt. Washington had reportedly decided to deny Egypt $95.7 million in aid and to delay a further $195 million because it had failed to make progress on respecting human rights and democracy. Egypt, an important regional partner for the United States, receives $1.3 billion in aid annually and remains critical of the U.S. decision to withhold the aid.
Egypt expressed anger on Wednesday by U.S. decision to delay and cut about $300 million in economic and military aid to the North African country, citing human rights records. In a foreign ministry statement, Cairo warned that this action would lead to negative consequences on U.S.-Egyptian interests. The tension marred Jared Kushner's meetings, which were nearly cancelled by the Egyptian side, but went ahead after a 3-hour delay.
The tensions are rising because during the Obama years, blocking aid was expected. But with the current president, it shouldn't have happened. But I believe it will remain strong.
Middle East issues were discussed with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, but talks focused on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Egypt has been urging all parties to help relaunch the stalled peace process.
It is time to end the static and unclear situation that the peace process is going through and launch a series of negotiations according to a set deadline between the Palestinians and Israelis. We call on the U.S. administration to exert more efforts in this regional conflict.
The White House advisor is in the region, hoping to find a solution to the Middle East crisis. But some are skeptical of success.
The U.S. sides with Israel, claiming it's the weak and helpless country. Of course, this is laughable, but it shows that all these visits by the U.S. delegations will not be fruitful as long as the U.S. is being biased towards Israel against Palestine.
In spite of the tensions surrounding Kushner's visit to Cairo, the U.S. delegation says Egypt remains a strong ally and a leading force in the war against terrorism and extremism. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
And Yasser now joins us live from Cairo. Yasser, what's the significance of that telephone conversation between President Sisi and Trump?
I think it was very important to try to patch the differences and the situation, the crisis, if you could, mini crisis that has happened when this news of the money that has been withheld by the U.S. government against Egypt came to surface. Egypt's reaction was very strong, saying that this event could hamper the ties with the United States. And it also came at a time when U.S. envoy Jared Kushner was arriving to Cairo for meetings with the Egyptian president, and to have this news, the timing was also negative, had a negative impact on the meetings in Cairo, and it was obvious that even at one point Egypt was planning to cancel the meeting by Jared Kushner with the Egyptian foreign minister and the Egyptian president. It was delayed for a few hours, which shows that Egypt's reaction was strong and was not happy with what has happened. So I think the call by the U.S. president is trying to clear out the differences and try to put the relationship back on track, knowing that Trump and al-Sisi had positive talks before and were very complimentary of each other, and showed and said that the ties between both countries would be strong. So this situation has been a kind of a purple patch in their relationship.
So, yes, so where does that leave the withholding of some financial aid from the U.S. to Egypt?
Part of this $300 million was actually from the Obama administration. They were also withheld during the former U.S. President Barack Obama, and they were supposed to be paid now. and now they're not paid as well. So it's a situation that has happened before. Whether it will continue to be withheld, it could be for a while, but it's only a sign that the U.S. is not helping out with Egypt. It's not a big number if you talk about the military expenses, because a huge portion of this money is for military expenses. So $195 in military numbers is not that big. However, it's a symbol, it's a sign that a pressure on the U.S. inside Egypt. Egypt doesn't look favorably on such situations, because it sees it as an interference in Egypt's internal affairs, as well as this aid is part of the peace process, the 1979 Camp David peace accord between Egypt and the U.S. and Israel. And one of the main issues in that is that Egypt in return would be paid an annual amount for military aid, and Israel also, but Israel's money was more than double what Egypt is taking every year. So Egypt sees that this is its right, this annual amount of money, and it should be taken in consideration as in respect to the Camp David peace agreement.
And how important is Egypt to the U.S.?
Obviously, Egypt has a very important role to play in the Middle East, in the hotbed area, which is full of violence in countries like Yemen, Syria, Iraq, and obviously the uprisings that happened in several countries like Egypt, Tunisia, and obviously also Libya. So at this point, rebuilding its army, fighting terrorism, fighting the illegal migration, and obviously a big economic impact and a link to the world through the Suez Canal and the revival of tourism and investment, also a bridge to Africa. So there is the political and economic importance of Egypt, a big army that can help in sustaining peace in several countries, or interfere to fight ISIL and other jihadist groups in other countries with its strong army, the 10th strongest in the world, and the strongest in the Arab and African world. So Egypt can play a pivotal role, obviously also as a strong mediator, historic mediator in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. So all these factors play in making Egypt an important ally to the United States, and Egypt looks at the U.S. as a balanced power, not as the ally such as the days of Mubarak, the former president, where the U.S. was the main ally. Egypt now looks at China, looks at Russia as well in the same path, trying to balance its ties with the East and West. And this makes it more important for the U.S. to look at Egypt, to attract Egypt to its side in the equation, the political equation in the region.
All right, Yasser Hakim in Cairo, thank you for those insights.